Hi guys, this is Ryan from 2 Feet and a Heartbeat. I'm going to take you on a virtual tour of London Court today on behalf of the City of Perth. So come and learn some things about the city. So when it was originally constructed, the building had 55 shops, 55 apartments and 25 residences in here as well. Now all the residences are long gone. There still are a lot of offices and shops in here, but of course it's still a great place to grab a cup of coffee for your walk around the city too. What's lost is that this building actually contains a lot of services, hairdressers and beauticians and barbers and jewelers and watchmakers and stamp collections and all sorts of services on the ground floor and on the top 2 floors as well. And a lot of the old buildings and the old spaces in here retain their original features. So it's a beautiful throwback in time while you're getting a haircut. So London Court's obviously a very quirky piece of infrastructure within the city of Perth. It was built in the 1930s and was obviously made to look about 400 years old for a sense of civic pride and a connection back to the old world in London, given that back in the 1930s, Perth's population was predominantly made up of people with ancestral links back to Europe. So this was definitely a place of civic pride. These days when people come through, they see it more of a bit of a quirk and somewhere that's maybe a little bit Harry Potter. But as we were going to say before, there's a lot of intricacies within the building and particularly the story behind the man that built it that are of the most interest. The turn of the century in Perth is pretty much defined by a gold boom era, and the man that did the best out of the gold boom era was an immigrant named Claude de Benales. Now, he was from London, he had a Spanish dad, he had an American mum, and he came out here as a penniless wannabe and ended up building an empire the likes no one had ever seen before. His legacy, as many other parts of his legacy, was building places like this, and when London Court was built, he wanted to make sure that there were links and ties to the imagery of gold and wealth, and there are secrets hidden within this building which show that. One of them being this fella up here. Now his name is Dick Whittington. He's a character from an old fable, and in that story the rumour was that in London the streets were paved with gold. Now in reality, in that era of time, the streets of London were actually paved with sewage and crime and disease, and it was blown out of proportion of what London was actually about. But he had a cat that was very adept at catching rats, and there were bounties on rats. His cat caught a ton of them, and Dick Whittington made his fortunes by catching rats with his cat. So at both ends of the arcade, in the entrance points, there's a lot of artwork as well, particularly on the ceiling. Now, the building is called London Court, and the ships that are on the ceilings here are not English, they're actually Spanish. They're the Spanish Armada, and the significance of the Spanish Armada are that they are the fleet that went off for Spain to try and find the fabled city of El Dorado up the Orinoco River, which of course did not exist, but goes down in history as one of those all-time fables. So the links of El Dorado, the city of gold, London Court, de Benales and his gold, all fits into the theme of wealth. So the man responsible for London Court is Claude de Benales. He became the richest man in Australia. As I mentioned, he came out to Perth basically with nothing, and when he went out to Kalgoorlie, he kind of identified that digging for gold was speculative. Some people do find it, some people don't. And at this point, all the surface gold was gone, so it was about going underground. And he thought, rather than digging for gold, why don't I corner the market on something that everyone who digs for gold needs? And he identified that as machinery. So he got into the machinery game and became filthy rich by selling machinery to absolutely everyone who needed it. Much like in the early 2000s when there was the dot-com bubble that burst, in the 1930s there was the Australian gold bubble. Essentially, more than 700 mines were listed on the UK stock exchange. They were overcapitalised and there just wasn't enough gold to support all of them. And as they started to collapse, the bubble started to burst. And de Benales' group of companies got caught up amongst this. So I hope you've enjoyed this virtual tour of London Court. It's been a pleasure hosting you. Make sure you come and visit it next time you've got a chance, and we'll see you around the city. Take care.